This stuff is so cool. Indoor flying models. These are also rubber powered, and the model's performance is based on the trim settings before you release it. I have two planes in here called Parlor Mites and one hand launch glider. These two Parlor Mites you could fly in your living room or any half decent sized room in your house. Back in the day, most houses had a front parlor, hence the name Parlor Mites. Indoor models are kept in a box to protect them and transport them. Very fragile. These are all balsa wood construction and they're covered with condenser paper. The condenser paper came from the engines of that era that had a coil and points and a condenser, and they would peel apart, split open the condenser and peel the layers, real thin transparent paper layers that made up the condenser, use them to cover models. Nowadays you can buy the condenser paper. Here are the props. These are balsa wood props. I also have my indoor support equipment. So I got my rubber lube, my winders in here, got a small stooge, some rubber motors for the models. There is a story behind the hand launch glider. I'll tell you while I'm assembling this Parlor Mite. That hand launch glider was built by world-renowned indoor modeler Rob Romash. He's an East Coast guy, I think from New Jersey. We were flying together in the gymnasium when I lived out east, and at the end of the evening he gave that model to my son. It's a beautiful model, some of the thinnest balsa you ever see. It's got a carbon fiber fuselage, just beautiful work. There's not many people could even build a hand launch glider that delicate. This string that I have in this box here, at one point, it wasn't when I was flying with Rob, but another time, another evening in the gym, I set it up where using this really fine thread and one of these Parlor Mites, I towed that hand launch glider from Rob Romash up in the gymnasium. Had a small piece of slow burning fuse set up on the string, and I released it. So turned it into a tow glider. So I had both of these in the air at the same time. Hand launch glider towed up by a Parlor Mite. I put 1/16 rubber in the Parlor Mite instead of the usual 32nd or 45 thou rubber. Give it a stronger climb. Made some practice climbs just towing the glider. Figured out the timing, how long it take to get to the top of the ceiling, and set up the fuse. And yeah, I have it on video somewhere. Releasing the glider from the tow plane. This Parlor Mite, take a close look at it here, has tissue tubes to mount the wing. The wing is mounted with, I call them tissue tubes. It's actually made up from the condenser paper. So they're just several layers of condenser paper rolled up with glue to make the tubes. To put the prop on, I was threading the motor hook onto the winder. If you look real closely, on the prop shaft, there's two tiny Teflon washers. Don't want to lose them. The hanger is mounted with tissue and glue. Same with the rear hook. But the tissue tubes are, one, for disassemble the model, put it in the box, but two, you can see I have pencil marks on them. You can slide them up or down in the tube to adjust the wing incidence. So I have them marked where this is flying right now. And both the wing and the stabilizer have airfoil to them. So it's a lifting stabilizer. And the way it's set up, you have an angle to the stick going to attach the tail to the motor stick, which causes it to turn to the left. But you're fighting prop torque. It's a large prop in relation to this airplane, so you have what's called wash in on the left wing and a little bit of wash out on the right wing. So those are all your trim settings, your incidence, your wash out, your wash in, your motor stick to your tail boom, I guess it's called, how much angle you have there. And then there's your center of gravity, lift and stabilizer. Center of gravity is probably more than 50% back on the wing. So that's what goes into even a little tiny plane like this, a Parlor Mite, for your trim settings that I've talked about. And then of course it's the different size motors and how many winds you put in them. Not a whole lot to flying one of these indoor planes. I have my winder. I have just a simple hook, C-clamp to this stool. Got my lube. And I have a rubber motor. This is 12-inch loop of 35 thousandths rubber. I fly with what's called O-rings on both ends of my rubber motors, but these are not actually O-rings. They're thin slices of Teflon tube. I don't tie them on my motor. Simply run the motor through the O-ring, bring the loop back around. You have a simple cinch knot. Have that on both ends. That just makes it easier to transfer the motor on and off the winder and the hook and mounting it on the model. At this point, I hang my winder from the motor on the stooge, and we're going to lube the motor. So I just take just a small drop of lube. That's all. I am simply just rubbing this up and down the rubber motor. Let's work it in. And of course you got the lube on your fingers. You want to get that on the condenser paper. And now we stretch wind our motor. I'm going to do 2 times stretch, and I'm going to put in probably about 1,200 winds. That would be, probably about 75 winds. Starting to come in at 50 winds, which is 2/3 of the winds maybe that I want to put in there. 75 winds, 62 is 1,000, 93 is 1,500. Yeah, let's go with that. So take the O-ring off the winder. Holding your tension against your stooge. Place that on the prop hook. Take the other O-ring off the stooge, and we have a wound Parlor Mite with about 1,200 winds. Okay, center up in the living room. I think that's about center. Kind of critical to get it to circle in the center of the room. It's going to use most of it. Here we go. Oh yeah, that was a good launch. Oh, it's flying beautiful. So see how that's staying level? Climbed a little bit initially. Now it's just kind of holding level. Time to put some more winds in. Nice, what a beauty. So I need to take the motor off, put it on a stooge, unwind it. I don't know how much winds are in it. I'm going to start over with my counting. We're going to put 1,500 wraps in there and see what we can do with it. For time, the longest I've flown this in my living room is 1 minute and 7 seconds. So let's see how close we can come to that. Let's talk about winding a little bit. So stretch winds, get more turns in, but for those winds, it will be making less power. So the last time I kept it 2 times stretched out to 50, and then I started coming in until I had 75 winds in. If I were to, and so it climbed a little bit initially. But if I were to start coming in sooner and pack some winds in with less stretch, you're playing with the power curve. You'd have more power on the climb out. So we're dealing with a low ceiling here. So what I'm playing with is getting winds in so I can get the duration of the flight. I do want it to climb some, but I don't want it to be bounced off the ceiling too much and affecting the flight as far as keeping it centered in the living room. Be nice to keep it clean, get a good launch, keep it centered, keep it clean. So I'm going to go for 1,500 winds, 93 turns. I'm going to stretch wind it 2 times, probably start coming in at around 80 turns, and for that power for the initial climb. So there's 2 times stretch out to 80. Now I'm going to start coming in with it. So this is to add power for the climb, but I don't want too much power. So 81, 90, 91, 92, 93. So there I am, kind of, again, talking about your pre-flight settings, your trims, part of it being your motor. I am trying to calculate how this is going to behave in this flying site to where I can get it to climb to the ceiling, but I don't really want it to be bouncing off the ceiling. But the higher I can get it and the more winds I got, which I do have 1,500 winds, those are for the duration. So here we go. I think I can get nice and low this time when I launch it. Pretty sure it's going to climb fairly strong right at the beginning. Got a clean launch. It's in the center of the room. It's getting pretty close to ceiling. Stay low, stay below it. Okay, that's not bad. Center up right there then. Stay below the fan. Ooh, 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 ooh. And now we have an issue. So that flight there certainly went south on me with it hitting the ceiling. Let's try it again. Make a slight adjustment. I'll probably keep it stretched up to like 85 winds. Okay, I kept it stretched to 85 winds and I only put 90 winds into it. Don't think it needs quite that many winds to stay off the ceiling. So 90, it's 16 to 1 ratio winder. I went 3 less, so it's got about 1,450 winds approximately in it. Nice. Looks like it's not climbing as strong. Still getting up there to get me the duration. Staying centered nicely. Looks like it's not going to hit the fan. Might hit this wall. Depends on how the air currents go. Can it make the turn? Yes, it did. We'll do it again. Oh, it's getting close. It's going to hit the wall. Oh, it came out of it. Nice. There we go. I'll have to look at the video to see how long a flight that was, but it's pretty good. Okay, I am going with 93 winds, which would be 1,500 turns. And I kept it stretched, 2 times stretch out to 90 winds. So most of the way. So I'm going for some more winds with less torque. So by now you can see, obviously the plane is trimmed really well. Now we're playing with the characteristics of the rubber motor. There's a little bit of luck involved too in a small flying site like this. So to get a minute in your living room, you have to have this plane trim perfect. You have to get the perfect power curve and number of winds in your motor and get a perfect launch to where it's centered up. And yeah, it's kind of a fascinating challenge to try to get a minute in your living room. So let's get a little lower, get the right angle, that launch. Perfect launch. Far centered in the living room and between the fans. I have a fan right above my head. There's 2 fans in here. Oh, we got the ceiling. And how bad does it affect our location? Looks like we're going to be okay. Stay below that fan. We have a shot here. Yes. Stay centered up. Don't move. I'm not even walking. Oh yes, this is the flight. Still eye level. So that's what all the winds are doing. Probably I'm only using 1/4 or 1/3 of the winds to get a flight this long. I'm trying to keep that power curve down. And I think that's going to be it. There you have it. Let's check the video. See what kind of time we got on that flight, but that was about as good as you're going to do. Flight trimming on a free flight rubber powered model is important. Understanding the different things you're adjusting, like what is affected under power, what is affected under the glide. But learning the characteristics of a rubber motor is probably as important. Looks like that flight didn't quite make a minute. I checked the video. I believe it was right around 57, 58 seconds. So that's, hopefully you can see the challenge and the fun, what it takes to get a plane to fly in a site that, well, everybody has a living room, right? I'm looking at my notes on this Parlor plane. It's 1.5 grams, 10-inch wingspan, and that's an 8-inch diameter prop. So just some specs on it. Yeah, that is a fun, cheap date, I can promise you. Hopefully this will get a few people interested in pursuing stuff like that. Let's take a look at the Rob Romesh hand launch glider. I mean, this is a work of art. Like I said, I don't know that there are very many people in the world that has the knowledge and the skill to build a plane like this. Carbon fiber rod for fuselage. It's got a little nose hook, can be catapult launched or hand launched. A little clay on the nose for balance. And I know from talking to Rob, he's sanding this balsa down. He has a method to sand it down. I mean, you can see right through this stuff. So beautiful model. I treasure having this. I'm safe keeping it for my son, but I'm not so sure how interested he is in this, so maybe it's mine. But what a work of art. Same with this. You breathe on and then just flex the trailing edges of the tail feathers to adjust for how it flies. But isn't that something?